it's not an email per se. It's a comment on we got on the website. Let's see.
Okay.
Comment. So we talked about I believe it was last episode, where I missed some emails, and one of them was DM Dastardly Dad.
Yeah.
And he wrote back or commented on it's time to level up.
Mm-hmm.
And he says he's famous. I'm not sure how he is, but if you are famous, Dastardly, spread some of that fame this way.
Yeah, we like a little fame, just a little bit. I don't want too much. I'm too old for a lot of fame.
Anyway, he talks about Talislanta.
Best of all, no elves.
Right.
That was their tagline back in the day.
And apparently no levels. But they do have experience points, and they use them to increase skills and attributes to limit. Your hit points do not go up. So a good hit could mean instant death at any time.
Oh, sounds like a little Arneson going on there. Did you read that article I posted
yes,
about?
I did.
Got that from Silent Josh. Sent that to me.
I'd actually been going through some old versions of D&D and come across different ways that they did hit points. An early version, they just had hits. You hit them like 3 or 4 times and they went down. So,
yeah.
But that's a war game type rules.
That was
there.
real early, yeah.
Yeah. So yes, we have some what are these called? Messages? Yeah, we have some voicemail.
I think Joe might be tired.
A little bit.
Okay. Let's see what we got on tap here.
Ode man.
Sweet. Okay.
Turn on the sound. And here we go.
Action.
Talking about math in college, I actually have 2 bachelor degrees. Most people go, up, but I went parallel. First degree, I actually did take honors calculus as my required math. So to Joe's point, I took honors calculus to fill the required slot. So ended up getting an A. I had taken AP calculus in high school, so it wasn't that big a deal. And I would go on to successfully complete a degree in creative writing. Creative writing. So going back a few years later to get computer science, I had another slot to fill and took algebra.
Oh, wow. Algebra. Now, are you talking? Now, I wonder, Taylor, is that a modern algebra? Is that an advanced algebra, meaning like the study of point sets and ring theory and that sort of stuff? Or did you jump back and take like a college algebra class? Because if you did, man, that's pretty sweet. After you pass calculus, that becomes pretty easy.
Right.
So, but that's cool, man. That's Taylor. I had a feeling Taylor had some math chops. Just something about the way he speaks that make me think he's pretty darn logical. I think it was his boys in the background.
At least.
I think they want to be a part of the podcast.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah, that's cool, Taylor. That's good. That's multiple degrees.
It's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about orcs, you actually might like the Warhammer 40K orc. I don't know about fantasy, but I do know in the 40K lore, orcs are actually a fungus type creature. So they shed spores as they walk around, and they shed a lot of spores when they get killed. So planets that are attacked by orcs are plagued by primitive orcs long after the initial threat is dealt with, because they keep popping up in I guess, spore fields. So the only solution, fire.
That is pretty cool.
There will be more on that later.
Okay.
I'm not reading out of the book for Call of Cthulhu right now, because I'm driving. But basically what they're talking about, a formal skill check, means the GM is called for the roll. So you know how some players like to roll dice without being asked to roll dice and kind of call their own checks. Oh, I'm going to listen for traps, roll. What do I hear? You know, the GM has to ask you to roll, and it's got to be, you know, kind of important. So I guess some GMs might say, you know, well, only these rolls count towards experience. But in the games I've played in, typically, pretty much any time you make a skill check in the game, that counts. And then at the end of the game, you'll roll, and if you roll over your skill, it's a D percentile system. If you roll over your skill, then that skill will advance. It's like a D10, you know, roll D10 for that many points. That's the way I remember Call of Cthulhu working off the top of my head.
Okay, I got to comment. I've heard of this, and I think I've had players do that. I'm going to listen to the door, and they roll. Look,
Right.
you roll without me telling you to roll. It don't mean nothing. Nice waste. I hope you had fun rolling those dice. I mean, look, I guess I'm not that harsh, but something about that, I don't know. That's the DM's purview, dude. I get to decide when you roll. You don't just roll randomly because you want to. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a that kind of stuff started in 3rd edition.
Mm-hmm.
And
there's a topic. I think 3rd edition, as much as we loved it, it did its best to try to make, and it did. You could almost take the dungeon master out of the game if you didn't care about the story, and you could just have, as a group, you guys could kind of decide, we're going to have a effective party level encounter, 2 higher, 3 higher, 1 lower, and we're just going to have this and randomly roll, and then everything else could kind of happen. The combat could be run without the GM if you so were inclined. Didn't want to have any kind of, I think it's bland, but it can be done.
right, because instead of having at the very least an outsider as the DM to the party, deciding the actions of the monsters, which they could come up with a totally different set of actions, you know, within the scope of the monster and the situation. Then the players might say, oh, the monster moves here or goes there. I mean, you may have a bunch of fairly honest players, and they'll try to run the monster collectively as well as they can. But I think it's better that you have somebody outside that group do it.
I think it would be,
yeah. And same thing with the roles, you know, let the DM is the one that says, they have the say so.
Yeah. And just the calling for the roles. I mean, I don't, you know, it's probably just my old grognardiness that I'm just like, yeah, I would get annoyed by a player if he kept doing that. I try to make a diploma. I make a diplomacy check. Slow your roll, homeboy. Literally.
Yeah. I wonder how much efficiency of play, people that are mindful of that, and the fact that we have such short sessions compared to the old days where we weren't, it's not like we were like, you know, laying around and every so often the DM would say some words and then we would do stuff, but we weren't in a rush. So maybe to make it efficient, because there's so much talk about making combat has to be fast. Everything has to be fast and efficient and happen in moments. And well, of course it does, because 3-hour sessions, 4-hour sessions or less. They were talking about 1-hour sessions. I haven't heard much about that lately, but yeah.
Well, that was their initial run at 5e. They're saying you could play in 1 hour, and I'm with you. I'm heading back toward the 6-hour session. I'll actually, you know what? Let's have our next session be 6 hours. Okay. Let's plan to have a day where you're off, so you don't have to work, and let's play for 6 hours. Let's schedule 6 hours or more.
All right. I'm up for that.
Cool.
My next day off is Sunday, and then after that's Wednesday. So
okay.
Sunday might be a challenge.
All right.
All right. Let's continue with Jason.
As for what are you going to increase in Call of Cthulhu playing a 20th detective or librarian or whatever, it's pretty much all the skills. So I think there are a couple skills you don't increase that way. I know Cthulhu Mythos doesn't increase that way, but there might be 1 or 2 other skills don't increase, but pretty much all the other ones do. So your library use would increase. your, you know, I forget all the names and skills, but detect, like where you listen at the door, hear noise, that would increase. Your handgun would increase. So anything you do, right? If you're fighting, those skills increase. If you're doing like perception-based things, those increase. If you have to make a roll for a knowledge check, that increases. So so it depends how often the GM asks you to make skill rolls, but anytime you're rolling, potentially for the most part, that can increase at the end of the game. The rules might say end of the adventure, not game. I don't know.
A little bit of extra bookkeeping there. You probably have to have a little spot for, did you use it?
Yeah, I think you have the player have to keep track of it. And I mean, for me, if you were playing that, you'd have to keep track of your own. I wouldn't know every time you did something significant. But yeah, I mean, I think Jason's alluding to my comment about, I said something flippantly like, I don't know why your skills would increase in the game like that. I mean, I know that they do, and Jason makes a good point that they do. I'm just kind of thinking, but you know what? To be fair, we haven't heard from Andy Goodman in a while, but he's played long-term Cthulhu campaigns, and I think you would, if your character is surviving as an investigator of the mythos, you would get better at stuff. That makes sense. I just, I guess for me, when I think about I guess for me, I just imagine Cthulhu being only enjoyable in sort of a one-shot or a very short campaign for me, but it's probably just me.
We also sadly live in a world where it's a lot of mediocre. So people don't have so Call of Cthulhu is modern, basically.
Yes.
So when you think of Call of Cthulhu, you think of modern people, and we reflect on current days, and you have some very super specialized folks, but the average person doesn't have a lot of different skills, and to think that they get better at things over time.
Well, I mean,
some
you do. I mean, I've been teaching for over 20 years, and I'd like to think I'm a better teacher than I was day one. I mean, I know that I am. I'm a better teacher than I was 10 years ago.
Right.
But it's been a long. But having said that, I think I'm sure in that game you're exceptional. I mean, and maybe they can correct. I would think your character is probably better than the average person. You're brave enough to go up against Cthulhu, so you got something going for you.
Right. Adventures are not supposed to be typical people.
Correct.
We've always done it at the end of each session in Call of Cthulhu, but it's possible the game actually says the end of each adventure. So it might be every, when you finish the full adventure. I don't know. But you don't advance that often, you die in that game. So you might as well do it each session.
Sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
All right. That's it from Jason. And next up we have John from Red Dice Diaries.
Hey there guys, it's John here from the Red Dice Diaries. Gotta admit, I laughed at your "do you need an art degree to get into a gallery" skit at the start of your Time to Level Up episode. I've actually got an art degree, I did a foundation and plus 4 years at university, and I've got to be honest, I fucking hated it. Although, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the social aspect of being at university, but for me, it took something I used to do and enjoy as a hobby, and it turned it into something that was work and drudgery. And it led to me actively not wanting to do much, if anything, art-related, once I left. Now, part of the reason I'm leaving this rambly message is because we used to have talks from commercially successful artists, like who'd come into the university and talk about how they got started in their careers and stuff like that. And the one common thread that seemed to run between the career stories was, regardless of talent, the artist just happened to get lucky and some rich or influential person took a liking to their work. And then once they started buying it up, other people started buying it because of that, and that's how they made their money. And I pretty soon decided I wasn't going to risk my future on just happening to get lucky in the already oversaturated world of art. Maybe that was a mistake, who knows? But there you go, it's the decision I made at the time. Anyway, I'm going to go back to the episode, guys. Catch you in a bit.
There was something that why am I blanking on? Taylor from Clerics Wearing Mill, and John said Taylor did creative writing, and John Allen's talking about an art degree. There is a connectivity. I mean, most people think mathematics is just this cold, hard logic, but there at high level math, when you're proving things, it is extremely creative. there is a high level creativity to even get started on some proofs. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I was posed a challenge of a theorem that was true, that I had to create the proof on, that I had to prove it myself, and I would just stare at it, I'm telling you, for a couple of hours, getting nowhere. I had to have an inspiration point. And so there's a degree of creativity that is significant. So yeah, I think, but I get John. I mean, I always thought art was a very tough field to spend 4 years or more getting a degree in, or maybe even creative writing. That's pretty tough, you know. If you're thinking of, because I guess when I hear creative writing, I think someone's going to be a novelist, but I'm probably very narrow.
And then you have to get out there and get a job in it.
That's what I'm saying.
And make some money. I mean, it's one thing to get the degree, which is challenging in and of itself, and then get out there and try to make it work for you.
And I don't know if I heard John, if John Allan had mentioned in our podcast last time, or if I heard it, listen to his show. He said he used to, John, did you used to have a comic strip that you used to draw? Hopefully he'd answer that sometime. Yeah, I was wondering if he'd said that. I could be mixing up some podcasts, but anyway, I'm just wondering if I heard him say that.
Gotta say, guys, I love the idea of orcs popping up out of the ground. It's John again from Red Dice Diaries. Reminds me of Warhammer 40k, where orcs reproduce by constantly shedding these like almost invisible spores that eventually grow up into goblins and orcs and stuff like that. And they can effectively terraform a world given enough time, because like I say, the orcs are and all the other greenskins are constantly shedding these spores. It also makes them very difficult to get rid of, because these spores can lie dormant. So you can like kill all the orcs on a planet, think, yes, we've successfully taken it back from the greenskin menace, and then a few years later you start getting pockets of orcs and goblins and whatever popping up again from these dormant spores. And I think that could be a pretty interesting idea to port over into a fantasy game. Anyway, I'm going to get back to the episode, guys. Catch you in a bit.
Yeah, that sounds like something that could definitely fix that problem or that quandary we had of the orc babies. Because you could just say, there aren't any. They grow up savage and evil, just the way Joe likes them. Kill with impunity. Yeah.
Impunity.
Yeah, John and Taylor. That's great.
Those dang greenskins.
Yeah, there we go. Greenskins. We'll use that.
That's not problematic, is it?
Yes, and we like problems.
Oh, okay.
I'm a math teacher. I give problems out, so I like them. Oh, wait a minute.
Hey there, guys. John again from Red Dice Diaries. Just listening to you answering the call in about alignment languages. And I've got to say, I've always envisioned alignment languages as a bit like, like the dark speech of Mordor or whatever it's called in the Lord of the Rings films. It's obviously a language, but whenever people speak it, everything starts getting dark and ominous in the room. And there's obviously some sort of like supernatural or like otherworldly element to it. And I've always sort of imagined alignment languages a bit like that, where they're half a discrete language, but there's also probably some sort of like magical effect in there that makes it very difficult, if not impossible, for people of other alignments to speak or understand it. But that's just my 2 pence, loads of different ideas out there, I'm sure. Anyway, I'm going to get back to the episode. Catch you in a bit.
I wouldn't mind that being a thing in the game, but I wouldn't. It's not like every evil person is going to be able to invoke the black speech of Mordor equivalent for your world.
I was thinking in the movie when Gandalf did that, things did get kind of dark and ominous, and everybody had a hard time even hearing him.
Imagine 10 or 15 people all speaking it at the same time. It would be totally oppressive. Mm-hmm. So you wouldn't just have everybody being able to do that. I think there would have to be something. You would have to speak the alignment language and have some other quality to you as a person.
Yeah. What if you were a high priest of, some dark god?
Yeah.
You would know the dark speech. And maybe you would then, when you speak it, you sort of speak to the soul of the other creatures who aren't quite as evilly evolved as you. And so the alignment tongue is something you feel as much as you understand and interpret. So the lowly minions, when Saruman speaks to the Uruk-hai, he can speak in the dark speech and they just kind of feel it. You feel me? Yeah, we feel you. Yeah.
But you wouldn't necessarily always have to, for all the alignment languages, you wouldn't necessarily have to go black speech, Tolkien black speech, for that to be a thing. You just figure some other sort of effect.
I think
So bad.
If we were actually going to use it in Mudsword, I would be inclined to have maybe a black speech and then Word of the Light. I don't know about neutral, but maybe just a generic good and the evil.
Yeah, neutral wouldn't make any sense.
No, and I think they would speak to your heart and soul. They wouldn't, and only the rare person could actually, verbalize it. Most people would just feel it.
About the only thing I would think neutrality would come into play would be to get everybody to calm down, maybe. Yeah, perhaps so.
Lotus position. Begin speaking. Oh, is that it?
That is it.
Sweet. John, Taylor, and Jason, the usual suspects who we love hearing from.
Yes. And we have links to all of their podcasts, and
everybody should listen to all
everybody's stuff is linked in the show notes. So
yeah. Okay. So we got this little article from Silent Josh, Arneson's hit points. Did you get a chance to read that article?
I did.
So the idea, it's interesting that that was kind of the beginning of, according to that article, kind of the beginning of some of the rift between him and Gary. So it was early on. He wanted hit points to be more set in stone as soon as you generate your character. And then you become harder to hit because you're a better character, not because you have more hit points. I read one of the, I read the like 3 comments in the, what is that called? The comment section. Sorry, Joe doesn't read comments.
I'm above the comments.
Right. But they did make a point. I thought it was good. That I think you could take either interpretation, where Gygax's more hit points are actually a part of your skill, your ability to dodge, your toughness, your stamina, kind of a more abstract thing. But you had mentioned, what did you mention earlier about a one shot of the guy? Who was the guy that sent the email or the comment on the website? Something Dad?
Oh, yes.
Dastardly Dad.
Dastardly
Dad talked about Talislanta, how you have a set number of hit points, what that means. So in I would think in Arneson's situation, if he had crits, you could probably get smoked at high level pretty easy.
Yeah, but in Arneson's view, your essentially your armor class, your defenses went up, your hit points did not. So you're harder to hit, but if you were harder to hit and you hit other things easier. However, to me, where that kind of might backfire is when you go up against powerful opponents.
Mm-hmm.
If your powerful opponents can hit you as easily as perhaps you could hit you,
right,
then it kind of self-defeating in a way.
Yeah, it seems like you would eventually run into some issues there, but you do with hit points too. I mean, you could say, well, it gets kind of ridiculous at 20th level when you got 300 hit points, and though they can hit you, it still takes 9 hits to take you down. But that wasn't true in 3rd edition. I mean, in 3rd edition, if you built your character right, you could take people down in one shot.
Right.
So armor class was kind of a in 3.0 armor class, but if you allowed characters
at high level,
at high level to build with impunity, armor class was not even a barrier at all.
Not really.
Yeah. I think that article, which is interesting, and we have the link on it, is it talks about he thought a range of 1 to 36 was kind of like pretty good for hit points. I don't know. He had some little formula he used. I think it would have been interesting if just a what if situation. I wonder if Arneson had lived longer, not lived longer. What if he had some backing some way, and his version of D&D had branched off and had nearly as much advancement and additions as Gary's. And if it had been Blackmore and Advanced Blackmore 2nd edition, Blackmore 3rd edition, I wonder, and it would have been interesting that it'd been very close games, but there might have been some real significant differences in how play turned out. Just if hit points were to be believed, but there's other things too about Dave, which I don't know much about. I think he probably would have changed a lot of things that would have been very different.
Yeah, there's no telling exactly. I mean, there is an early version of Blackmore in the for use with the white box sets, right? The first version of Blackmore, and apparently I didn't look at it too closely, but I was looking at it the other night. They use slightly different rules.
Yes.
So
Yeah, I've seen that. There is something called was it the first fantasy campaign that was published in 77. And that became a bigger thing. Judges Guild published it later on too. And I got a PDF look at that, and it's pretty different from D&D. Not massively, but enough to be interesting. So
and that's Arneson's work.
Arneson's development. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You remember what it was called?
The first fantasy campaign.
That's what it's called.
Yeah, that's what it was called.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think historically speaking, it was the first campaign ever published, like full campaign in 77. So that was before it was pre-Greyhawk.
And that was produced by
I think Judges Guild did it for Arneson.
Well, Greyhawk was also a supplement for
correct
a white box supplement.
But it was a little booklet.
Yeah, a little booklet.
A little booklet. I could be wrong. I think it might have been the first real fantasy campaign, but that's what he called it. I'm not sure. I mean, it's a shame. There's probably a lot of arguing there, and too bad they couldn't have. Well, maybe they had different visions. Maybe they needed to split.
They probably did.
Yeah.
I mean, they had different visions, and they weren't willing to back down.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, they both thought they were. But even the hit point thing alone, you can make a good argument. I mean, I think both of them are valid ways to play fantasy games. Hit points don't have to be this abstract number that keeps building and building as you level to give you this buffer protection. It could be your armor and your natural ability at higher level lets you dodge and weave, and you still have hit points are truly physical. So even a 20th level fighter has 22 hit points. That's his body, how much damage he can take. A couple of longsword strikes and he's dead. He mostly gets missed.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that would change the way damage would work too. So
sure.
People would just not really you wouldn't be rolling a lot of dice when you did damage.
And you couldn't have massive modifiers.
No.
I mean, to damage. You couldn't roll, third edition, you couldn't have a D8 plus 26.
Right.
And then when you did hit, you'd be killing whatever you hit. And I wonder if his monsters similarly had less hit, but maybe not. In that idea, monsters could definitely have more hit points. Because I don't think a dragon would need to be capped at 36 hit points. He could easily have 72 or 100.
Right. Because of just being a dragon, really big and everything.
He's really big. He could take a lot of sword blows before he goes down, and not many would be telling. They would bounce off his scales and stuff. So yeah, sure.
Although with Smog, it only took one arrow.
Yeah, novel versus game. Sure.
Yeah.
All right. What are the contest of champions? How's our YouTube subscriptions going, Joe?
We are at 96.
Dude,
we are on the cusp.
So close. Look, dudes. Inferno, baby. Sweet battle games of the abyss. Man. Out of the abyss, 5e. These are your choices if you win. Sign up, last 4 people. Maximum X crawl, Pathfinder version of X crawl. The setting is beautiful. Even if you don't like Pathfinder, Max, you would love that setting.
Maybe not. I don't know.
Maybe not. He might hate it.
I don't know how much he is into Gonzo stuff.
No, he probably wouldn't like it. He wouldn't like X crawl. No.
Yeah, it's modern. It's a weird mixture of modern and fantasy at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, Joe and I, Joe was on more, I was on there pretty long. We stayed pretty late. We were on Legion of Myth this past, was it Friday?
Friday. They have they call it the Friday chill stream.
Yeah, just talking stuff. I mean, it was really cool. It was good for me to finally got on there. I loved hearing all the different people's viewpoints and who's the guy from California? Which one is he?
Oh, that might be OG. There's 2, I think. Maybe even Bruce Lombardo might also be from California.
Yeah, there's painting. So yeah, there's another guy too. It was a good time. We had a lot of good discussions. Definitely check them out. They have good discussions. So I think we want to talk a little bit about the Wizard Tower games.
Yeah.
Wow. So there's this. They got Wizard Tower Games, which is in I'll say, I don't mean cahoots, but they're working with TSR, the new TSR, and they got a threatening email this week from, I think, well, you read it closer than I did.
It's anonymous.
Anonymous. We don't know who it is. And they were basically telling them they need to not be working with TSR, or they're gonna cancel them through social media blasting, I guess.
Right. I mean, it's just weird. I mean, the weird part is they, I mean, it's one thing to not like their tactics, or you may not like TSR that they've, the new TSR 3 or whatever some people are calling it. They changed the date for their convention twice, and now it's on the same day as Gary Con.
Yeah, and they're in the same town.
They're in the same town, same day. So that's kind of weird. Why would you do that?
Feels a little shady.
You know, who knows? You may just have some inept planners over there.
But in the end, all that threats and stuff is just ridiculous. I would also direct folks to, what is it? Your dungeonisracist.blogspot.com by Venger Satanis. He has a nice parody of that letter he found in his infinite research skills that was sent out to some random gamers. It's pretty funny. It's a little rude, but it's funny.
Yeah.
I hope TSR and Wizards Tower just tells those guys to go take a hike
or ignores them.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll have a link to this. It's on Twitter where this email was posted, and they have some stuff redacted in here, probably some names of people that Wizards Tower, or what is it? Wizard Tower Games.
Yeah,
Wizard Tower Games didn't want public from the email, but yeah, apparently they can't. They're not great at the English.
the writers of the email.
Right. And instead of saying Justin Lanasa, they said just Lanasa.
Him.
Just Lanasa, the CEO.
Yeah.
So only Lanasa has a very checkered past. I guess only him, nobody else.
Yeah, no one else in the whole world. That's pretty sad. Oh well. And there was another guy. Who's the one that does the Evil DM video YouTube podcast thing?
DM Dave.
Unscripted.
Yeah, I don't know the names.
I haven't watched it too much, but I mean, I think he was listed too. So whatever.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They went on a video vlog of the Evil DM, who himself is a TSR paid thing.
Ooh, okay.
Thing?
Huh? Paid?
Yeah. It says of Evil DM that he is a TSR paid thing. Whatever that means.
The pay is good. The pay is really good. I wouldn't mind being a paid thing.
Right. And you will sadly understand what it can be like to be the current thing on Twitter.
Yeah. So here's the deal. I don't have a Twitter account. Not hearing you. Don't care.
Yeah.
I think businesses should get off Twitter completely.
And one of the weirdest things in this very short email of a lot of weirdness, we cannot allow TSR to gain creatives.
Cannot allow them to gain.
Can you stop them?
Apparently they think they can. I mean, I think they're going to say things like TSR bad, don't join them. If you do, we'll boycott you too, creatives. And I'm just kind of like, if I were a creative, I'd be like, so I mean, that's really what they need to do. They need to literally just say so and move on. But people will get nervous, probably. Somebody will. Oh, Joe is sharing
it because I am a sharing sort. We'll also have a link to this in the show notes, like I already said.
Yeah.
I can't make it any bigger, so if you're looking at this on YouTube, you may not be able to read it very well, but we'll have a link. Check out the link and laugh, because this is just, in my opinion, hilarious.
Yeah, I think Tinkar had a comment on it too. And Tinkar's no fan of TSR3, but he thought this was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, because it is. Okay. I think, is that all we want to jabber about here in the Outlands?
Yeah, apparently I have a drinking problem here. Can't get it all in my mouth.
That's all right. Okay, so let's